Hello everyone, welcome to another video of Naukri Learning. So in this tutorial, we are going to look at what are ORMs in Django. So let us quickly go over the content that we are going to discuss today. We are going to get an overview of what is ORM in general, why it is needed, what are the advantages and disadvantages of an ORM, how you can connect with a DB using ORM in Django, and we will create tables and models using ORM and how you can query those tables using ORM. Then finally, we will share the summary and few resources and conclude the session. At the end of this session, you will have a basic understanding of what ORMs are and you can use them in your projects. So let us look at what is ORM. Okay. So the full form of ORM is Object Relational Mapping. Okay. So this is a technique that lets you create queries using some form of code and directly interact with the database. So it adds a abstraction layer between your code and your database so that you directly do not need to write SQL codes in order to interact with your database. Why is ORM needed? Okay, so first of all, it actually handles a lot of complex logic inside it that needs to be written in SQL. So it kind of takes your Python code or any other coding, like in Java or JavaScript, and translates that to a SQL code and finally runs it on a database. So it improves your development speeds as well as you need not write complex SQL codes in order to create something or map your objects to database objects or database tables. It improves security as well. Okay. So as the name suggests, object relational mapping. So it takes an object from your program that could be an object of a class and it maps that object as a row item or a table in your databases. Okay. So this is a one-on-one mapping from the object that you created in your program to a row entity in your database tables. So let us look at the advantages and disadvantages of using ORMs. Okay, first of all, the advantage is it reduces the time of development. Okay, because you need not write redundant SQL codes, and you need not have the learning of SQL at all. You can directly use ORMs, and the syntax are pretty straightforward, and thus you can interact with database with ease. It also improves the security of your program, and it handles all the cases of SQL injections that might happen to your program as well. Another thing to note here is it overcomes the vendor-specific difference of SQL. So what I mean by this is if you're using Postgres or SQL, or if you're using MySQL SQL, both of them will have some syntactical differences. But while using ORM, it handles all those translations. So only parameter that you need to change would be a connection string in your settings, and it will be able to translate your code to multiple SQL vendors with a click of a button. Another thing to note here it is that it will make your migration easier. So suppose if you want to migrate to some other database from your existing database or some other version of SQL, then it will also handle those cases easily because right now you do not need to go over thousands of SQL codes and understand them and translate them to the vendor specific SQL code, and you would be still be able to continue using your existing Python codes, and it will be able to create all the schemas and tables and insert values in the specific tables because you have been using ORMs. So let us quickly go over some disadvantages of ORMs as well. The first is the developer does not get to interact with the database directly. So he might not be able to debug at certain points where he want to look at the SQL code and understand what is happening behind the scene. This also are often slow because there is a translation of Python code to SQL that is going on. And sometimes creating complex SQL queries, which could be very optimized, might not be done via ORMs. So if you are very comfortable with SQL and you know that the queries that you can write are kind of going to be superior than what these ORMs are going to offer, it's better to use your own SQL queries. But over there, you have to keep in mind that you have to program or code your SQL queries in such a way that it is not subject to SQL injections. So the next thing, let us jump into any ID of your choice. and let us start to code and understand how ORMs work in the background. So for this example, I'm using PyCharm, and all the codes that we are going to write today will be shared in a GitHub repository, and we will attach the link in the description below. So for this project, I'm using a virtual environment in which all of my modules are going to lie. So if you're not familiar of how to create a virtual environment, you can go ahead and open any terminal and write Python minus m venv and then provide a virtual environment's name. So I'm just writing venv as my virtual environment's name and hit enter. Then it will create a folder like this, a virtual environment folder that you can use to activate your virtual environment. Over here, you just need to go into the scripts folder, copy the activate file path. Okay. You can just use the absolute path and you can just paste it over here and press enter, and it will create a virtual environment, and you will be able to see your virtual environment's name in the brackets or in the beginning of your terminal command. Okay. So for now, since I have already this thing activated, I'm not going to do that again. And let us now go ahead and download few modules. First is going to be pip install Django. That is something that we're going to use as a development framework today. So let me go ahead and press enter. Right now, since my requirement is already satisfied, it did not download Django again. But in your case, it will download it for the first time. Then you can just go to your Python console, okay, and write import Django. If it is able to import Django successfully, then that means your package is already installed. Just to be sure, you can just write django.get version and press enter. If it uh, provides you the version name, then that means your module has been successfully downloaded. Then you can just press quit and close the console. Okay. So now let us go ahead and create a Django project. So we will just write Django slash admin start project and give a project name. So we will just say learn underscore ORM and press enter. And it will go ahead and create a folder inside your current working directory named as learn ORM. Inside that, you have your main project and all the necessary files, and then you have manage.py. Great. Then we're going to move into this particular directory of learn ORM. So we'll just write learn ORM cd and move into this directory. Now you can use your Python manage.py in order to create your new applications. So I will just write start app and give a app name. So this is going to be test ORM app that we are going to install in our Django project and press enter. So this will create another folder of test ORM inside this folder of learn ORM, which is test ORM is just a extension app that we can install in our learn ORM project. Now, what you need to do in order to use it is that you can go ahead and see the settings of learn ORM. In your installed apps, you can just include your app. So over here, to install your custom app, you just need to write the app name, the folder name in which your app is going to be. That is going to be test ORM. Then you need to put apps, since it is a module of apps inside your entire app folder. And then inside app, you need to figure out the class in which your app is going to create. That is going to be test ORM config. And you need to paste that and put a comma at the end. Okay. And over here in the database, you can see right now the engine is MySQLite or the SQLite engine, and it will create a db.sqlite file inside your root directory. Okay. So for this, since we have right now created our application, we'll just close this, and go to the models of test ORM. Over here, you can create your own models. Okay. So first, you just need to create a class. A model is going to be a representative of a table in a database. So all the models that you create over here are going to be a class essentially, and those are going to get created in your database as a table. So if we are going to just create a particular class, say test table, and this is going to be an extension of models models.model. In this class, you're going to have multiple columns. So let us take a few common columns that we're going to have. Say we will have some int field, which is going to be models dot integer field. And over here, you can specify the default values as well. So I'm just going to default it to say 0. Then you will have a character field, which is again going to be a models dot character field. Over here, we can specify the length of your character. We will just say max length is going to be say of 200 characters. Again, you can use the default as well. Then we will have some date time column, date field. So you can use models dot date field. Okay, I'm not specifying any default right now. It can be null. Then we can have date time field as well. Date time field, which is going to be models dot date time field. Okay. Similarly, you can have multiple other fields as well. Like you can have models dot float fields as well, which is going to be our integer or values. Okay. So now your models are created. You have one test table that is going to be one model, or one of the table that is going to be replicated in your DB that is going to get created at this particular base location with the name of db.sqlite3, in which this table or this particular table is going to get created. Okay. In order to commit these changes, you have to write python manage.py make migrations, and then you have to write the app name that is going to be test ORM. Okay. Once you write this, it will show that you are creating a model named test table, and this is your migration SQL syntax that is there. So you can also go into your migration and see the initial 0 to 3 migration. Over here, it will have all the necessary fields and what kind of operation is getting done over here. And then you will also notice that you have created a DB of a db.sqlite3 SQL file. Okay, now in order to save these changes, you need to write manage.py and migrate. Okay, so now it's applying all the changes that you have done, and it's applying into this database. Okay, now let us quickly see this particular database and see how this works. Okay, so for this, I'm just going to copy my path. I will just copy the absolute path, and I'm going to use a database connector of dbeaver. Okay, so once you have dbeaver open, you can just connect to your database. So in this case, it's SQLite 3. I'm just going to click on SQLite and put the path over here and click on finish, and it will open the SQLite database for me over here. Over here, I can see all the tables that Django has created for this project. And at the end, I can see I have a table of test ORM underscore test table, which is going to be the project name. Okay, so the project name is test ORM, so it adds a prefix of test ORM at the beginning, then adds an underscore, and then creates a class name named table in the database. If you go ahead and let us create one notebook over here in order to understand of how this table looks. So we'll just do a select star from test ORM test table, and let's see how the table looks. Okay, over here we have these many columns. We have ID, integer field, character field, date field, and date time field. You see that ID is a column that we did not create on our own, and it got created just because we did not have a primary key over there. Now, let me go ahead and create another model over here. We'll just use this only. This table, we will name this as this table v2. And over here, I will just make my int field as my primary key field. Okay. I will make this as true. And we will just do all the steps that we did earlier. We will first make migration of test ORM. Then we will put migrate. Okay. Now we'll just refresh the database once. We'll be able to see that we have two test tables over here. I will just use the v2 version of test table. Okay, and let's run this. So right now we can see we have only int table over here. But previously, for this particular table, we had the extra column as well, which was a representative of the primary key. So if you define your primary key, this ID field will not get created. However, if you have defined your primary key with some particular column, it will get created over here. Okay. So for now, let's just move back to PyCharm and see how you can insert data into your tables. So we are back in PyCharm, and let us open our Python shell and instead py. Okay. Over here, we are going to write our Python code, and we will interact with this particular application and see how it works. Okay. So we'll just create an object one of type test table. It's going to copy, save, and over here, I'm just going to write my int field is going to be default. My character field, I'll start with my character field and say char date field. Okay, so for date field, I would need date time field. So I will just import date time. Okay, so now I'm going to write that thing again. Object one is going to be test table. I will just write character field is test character. Then I would have the date field, and over here I will insert datetime.now, and I will make it as date, and then I have date underscore time underscore field, which is going to be again datetime.now, and I press enter. Okay, this table is not defined. Okay, I got to import that. So for that, I will do is from test underscore orm dot models, I will import test table and test table v2. Now I'm going to write the same function again. Now this object is created, and now I will say ob1 dot save. Okay, now it saved the entire object that we got created right now. Now what I'll do is we'll go to dbeaver and refresh this database again, and now run this particular table and see what has come up. Okay. Now you can see one ID got created, and the default value of integer was put over here. Character field and the date time and the date time field were filled over here. Okay. Now similarly, what we can do is we'll just create another table. Okay. So over here, we will just remove the primary key from here because it cannot be a primary key if we have default value set over there. I will just go out from this terminal. I will do all the migrations. and I will say migrate. Now I'm going to go to my shell again, and from test underscore orm dot models, I will import test table and test table v2. Now I'm going to create an object by fetching all the details of test table where integer field is equal to 1 or id is equal to 1. Okay, so I'm just going to fetch the object again from this test table. And how you can do is you can do test table dot objects dot get where id is equal to, we'll just check the id. So over here the id is 1, so I will just fetch where id is equal to 1. Okay, so we will see that we got the object where id is equal to 1. So let me fetch the character value of this particular field. That is going to be char field. We got the test char. Similarly, we can get the date time field and so on. Okay, now let us go ahead and put inserts and value in this test table. Okay, and since now the values have the default value, we can actually put the value of test table uh, value directly into test table 2. Okay, so for that I will just create an object 2, which is going to be of test table v2 type, and I have to write all the fields over here because we do not have any default value. So integer field is going to be 1, character field is going to be test char. Now from the for the datetime field, I will just fetch the value from object 1 that we created. Okay, it's going to be object 1 dot date field, and let's see what happens. So it created a value with 3 columns filled in test table 2, and we're just going to hit save. So we saw that there is an integrity issue or not null constraint that is applied on this particular table. You can go ahead and modify your table accordingly in order to remove this not null constraint, or you can actually put a test value over here and create the table, which is going to be datetime field. I'm just going to use the field from datetime object 1 itself. Okay. So it created the object in the second table as well. So now we go ahead and run this particular command. We got the test char, the date field, and the integer field. Okay. Now, in order to retrieve this field, you can create an object 3, and you can say test table v2, where either primary key is equal to 1, so it will fetch you the same object, or you can say where id is equal to 1. Oh, sorry, it is going to be int field. Okay, we'll say int field is going to be 1. So, or you can use any other field type. Say you can use character field type, and we can just copy paste the value from here. So this is acting as a where clause in your table. Okay. Similarly, you can do multiple operations as such in order to insert and retrieve the values from your table or the models that you created in your actual table. Okay. So I will just go ahead and quit this session for now. So with that note, we saw how you can create your models into your databases using ORM, how you can insert values or rows inside your database using ORM, and how you can retrieve that. You can go ahead and also learn about what are the other parameters that are possible for each field type. You have so many parameters like primary keys, unique values, or whether it is a unique value permissible or not, blank is permissible or not, and so on. We will attach a detailed link to the resources for this particular documentation in the README file. Please find that file in the GitHub repository shared in the link below. So with that note, this session comes to an end. If you have liked this particular video, please share it with your peers and friends. Please provide us your valuable suggestions and feedbacks in the comment section below. And please subscribe to Knock Learning for more such videos. Thank you and good day.